That little girl kicked your ass. Aight.
Gotta get that first shot off before that bullet hit me.
The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the newest MCU series that just ended on Disney Plus last week. Following the events of Avengers Endgame, Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes team up in a global adventure that tests their abilities and their patience. Before I get into it, this will be full of spoilers for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm not going to do a play-by-play thing, but I will be getting into spoilers with this review. I had pretty normal expectations for this series. I didn't expect anything too crazy. I was expecting a normal, kind of generic spy thriller adventure with characters that we love. I'm happy to say that this series surprised me in many different ways. It did surpass my expectations, but not like a lot. Like, it didn't blow me away, but this series was definitely a lot better, a lot different than I thought it was going to be. Yes, this series has a pretty normal spy thriller plot and narrative that isn't too unique or too different, but the best parts about this show is the characters. They develop and get deeper into the characters that we already know and love. They give Sam a real backstory here. Even though I thought some of that was the most boring part of the show anytime they talk about the boat, but you understand where Sam's coming from. He's always trying to please everyone. He doesn't know what he did was right with the shield. He really had no idea what he wanted to do. Yes, Steve wanted him to be the new Captain America, but Sam felt like he couldn't live up to that, and not living up to that felt like he'd be a failure, and he had to give it up. And he really thought what he did was right, but he's constantly reminded throughout the series that he made a mistake, and he has to make up for it. But I love what they did with Sam's character. He's always been a good character, but they made him more interesting here. He's always conflicted with some of the decisions that he's made. My favorite part of this series, though, is what they did with Bucky. I thought everything they did with Bucky was perfect. It was spot on, it was interesting, fascinating, it was emotional, all of that was great. I love that he has Steve's book, and he wrote all these names of people that he wronged while he was a Winter Soldier, all these innocent people that he killed, and he's crossing off the list. He feels like if he writes all these people in this book that he'll finally be at peace, but we realize throughout the series that that isn't necessarily true. I love the idea that Sam and Bucky throughout the series feels like they are doing what they think Steve would want them to do, but then they eventually realize that they need to do what they think is right. Yes, Steve's a great guy. He's like the greatest person ever, but they can't get so wrapped up all the time of what Steve would have done. They need to do what they think is right. But I love everything they did with Bucky. I love that scene where they're in Wakanda and she's reading off those lines from Civil War that would activate the Winter Soldier. And as she's saying these words, and he's fighting and resisting it, and he's realizing he's winning. He's not going to turn the Winter Soldier. He breaks down. It's a great performance by Sebastian Stan, but it's a great emotional moment for this character. And like I said, they really add some depth to these characters that we already know and love and add real emotion to all of this. Another character they brought back was Zemo, and I thought he was fantastic. I always thought Zemo was an underrated MCU villain. Everyone after Civil War was like, oh, the villain was weak. And I always thought that Zemo was actually a very interesting villain. He can't beat the Avengers physically, but he knows how to beat them mentally. I've always loved villains like that. And I thought his goals and motivation, everything he did in Civil War made a lot of sense. And then here, even adds more to his character. He's extremely helpful for them. He had the same goals as they did. They wanted to end this super soldier program, and he's going to help them out. And I just loved everything they did with him. He was a lot of fun. He was entertaining. He was just great. It was a great addition to have to this show. And I love the final scene with him and Bucky because there is a lot of bad blood there. But I love that shot where Bucky seems like he's going to kill Zemo, and Zemo seems like he's accepted it. He's going to accept the fact that he's going to die. That kind of happened at the end of Civil War, but Black Panther stopped him. But here, there's like a look in his eyes. He's like, yes, it's finally over. Kill me. Then obviously Bucky doesn't do it. Then Zemo has this look of confusion, sadness. It was great. It was great for his character. And it only makes sense that he would be locked up in that high security prison because he was technically the only one that really beat the Avengers. Well, I guess Thanos did too. But out of all the other ones, all the other villains, it seemed like he was the one that tore them apart completely. So it makes sense to have him in that high security prison. But I always thought, why don't the Wakandans just take him to Wakanda? I feel like that would make the most sense. But what do I know? Now let's talk about John Walker. I thought John Walker was an interesting character. I like the fact that he was given this role as Captain America, and all he wanted to do was do a good job. Be the best Captain America could be. But his ego got to him, the pressure, taking the serum, all of that, and he ultimately failed. And I just thought all that was fascinating. Yes, he's a dickhead. He was by far the least likable person in this whole entire show. One of the most least likable people in the MCU, period. But by the end of the series, I had a soft spot for him. When he got this new suit and he's U.S. Agent, I believe. I think that's a character in the comics. And, I don't know, I was kind of happy for him. He had a redeeming arc to him after pulling off one of the most shocking moments in the MCU so far. The end of the 4th episode, I believe, where he murders that guy in front of everyone and everyone's watching, was shocking. My jaw actually dropped. It was a shocking moment of violence that you don't really see in the MCU too much. And I love that shot and that imagery of the shield just stained in blood. Let's talk about the finale now. I've already mentioned parts of the finale, but I was a little disappointed in it. I thought they did a good job with a lot of things. I'm more disappointed in it in a technical aspect, and there are a lot of things that happened that I was questioning. I fucking love Sam's new suit. I love that he's Captain America. I thought everything with Carly was well done. I thought Carly was an interesting villain, by the way. I didn't really talk about her too much, but I thought she was interesting because you understand her cause, and her cause makes sense. She's just a little fucking crazy, but I thought everything they did with her was fine, and I thought that worked out. I already mentioned this before, but I thought everything they did with Bucky was perfect, but I do wish that scene where he talks to the father of this guy he killed, I wish that lasted longer. It was too quick. It was like 15 seconds long. I wish that was like a 5-minute scene. I wanted to start crying because that was built up a lot in the series. I guess they don't build up too much because they don't really talk about it after the first episode until the final episode. But you know that was dwelling in your head the whole entire series. You knew that was eventually going to come back at some point. I just wish it was longer. I wish that sequence was longer because there was a lot of emotion to that. I thought everything Sam did with Isaiah was great. That final scene where Isaiah has his memorial in the DC Museum, like, I thought that was really well done. I thought the message was good. I thought everything about the finale was fine. It just didn't have the emotional payoff I thought I was going to have. And I'm still a little bit confused about Sharon Carter being the power broker, even though we all saw that coming. But I just don't really understand what the power broker is. I don't know. I can't really judge it too much because they obviously have a plan. If she just got pardoned and now she has all these U.S. secrets, they're going to do something with that. And there might be some in the comics, and I haven't read any of the comics, so I have no idea. But just as a casual MCU fan, it was kind of weird. I get it, though. She's pissed off at the country. I get that. But still, a little weird. Like I said before, I had a lot of fun with this show, especially because I love these characters, and they add a lot of depth to these characters and made them more interesting. And I just love the MCU. Anything the MCU puts out normally is good. And anytime we go back to this universe, I'm always fascinated and have a lot of fun. But I will say, if you're a very casual fan of the MCU, like you haven't really seen all the movies, you're just looking for a spy thriller adventure, this might not really be for you just because you won't really find anything that is super interesting to you. The best moments of the show is making these characters more interesting, giving them more depth. And like I said, if you're a fan of the MCU, you'll love that. But if you're just more of a casual fan that doesn't watch too much MCU and you're just looking for a thrilling, shocking, interesting spy espionage plot, I mean, it's fine. There are some interesting parts, but overall, like I said before in the beginning of the review, it's just sort of generic. And that's just my biggest issue with the show. The plot overall and the story is whatever. But I've said this a million times. The best part about the show are the characters. Without these characters, this show would completely fail. But I think the MCU did a good job again. I think this is a fun MCU adventure. If you're a big fan of MCU, you'll definitely like this a lot. And I will give Falcon and the Winter Soldier 7.5 Davy Daves. I am excited to see what they do next. I'm excited to see Sam as Captain America. I know he's getting his own standalone movie. I think Bucky will be in it too. And I thought it was a nice touch on the final episode. At the end of the episode, it said Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Where before every episode would end, it would say Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And at the end of this episode, it said Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Thought that was a nice touch. So, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Let me know what you guys thought if you've seen it. And thank you so much for watching. Click here to see more of Dave's Takes.